Okay, so I'm aware of space issues on my computer, so I'm going to try and keep these videos as concise as possible. President Trump and Vice President Pence have been addressing the National Rifle Association, which is not hugely surprising because Trump has always been a stooge of the NRA from the beginning of his campaign in 2016 onwards. His views on gun issues in the past have been somewhat ambiguous, but it's very clear that since he decided to run for president, he identified the gun lobby as a base that he wanted to go for. So it's really not surprising. That would be that. But it transpires that President Trump has decided to take a swipe at the UK. And there was a segment of the speech that was showing his address to the NRA. Incidentally, this NRA convention, ironically, is gun free. Um, so when the gun lobby points fingers and pointed fingers at President Obama and his security detail for making sure that there's gun-free zones around President Obama, it's interesting how the NRA is gun-free, even though they advocate for pretty much unlimited weapons across the country. Anyway, part of this speech was Trump basically deciding to take a swipe at the knife situation in this country. Let me be very clear. Does Britain have a knife problem? Yes. Does London specifically have a knife problem? Yes. I recognize that. We have a very serious problem. It's a urgent problem and it needs to be addressed. Violent crime is on the rise, and there's a range of factors for that. Too many to go into in this video. But the point is, I recognize we have a problem. So I'm not in denial. I'm not saying that, I'm not turning a blind eye to the fact that we have a problem. So let me just say it Britain has a problem with knife crime, right? Our overall homicide rates are actually still comparatively low for a country of 66 million. When you look around the world, when you compare the UK to a country like Brazil or South Africa or Honduras, we are way, way lower. Um, in fact, Western Europe in general remains one of the safest regions in the world in terms of violent crime. Despite the headlines, what ultimately matters is the statistics. But that doesn't mean that there hasn't been an increase in violent crime. There has, and in the capital, unfortunately, violent knife crime has been on the rise, particularly among young people, and black on black crime is a very serious problem. Anyway, Trump's attitude to this is that if we just had guns, then hey, we wouldn't have the knife problem. What utter nonsense. What utter baseless nonsense. And once again, it just reiterates the point that Donald Trump is not a statesman. Donald Trump is not a statesman. Yes, he's president of the United States, but he is not a statesman. Aside from the fact that there's zero evidence to show that if this country had the sort of weak gun laws that America has, then we would somehow not have a knife problem is utter nonsense. Incidentally, I'd be interested in knowing what the knife crime statistics of the United States are. That's something that's rarely discussed. Most American homicides are guns, but I don't know what the knife crime statistics are over there. Maybe they're less in the UK. I don't know, but this is really a case of the pot calling the kettle black. Um, the audacity for Donald Trump to point fingers at this country is utterly astonishing when he has done absolutely nothing of substance to tackle America's chronic problem of gun violence. On his watch, you've had the Las Vegas massacre, the Sutherland Springs massacre, the Parkland massacre, and these are only the major incidents, as in over 15 fatalities. There's been many, many other cases that, you know, they'll make temporary headlines and then they go back into the backstream of news because it is so rampant in America. So I don't think we should take any lectures from an American president on violence. It's utterly absurd. It's not the first time Trump has done this. When France has suffered terrorist attacks, he's liked to pontificate and point the finger and say, "Oh, if only the victims in the Bataclan theater in Paris had guns." It's the sort of nonsensical blowhard rubbish that the gun lobby is always churning out, and it's baseless. The only example I can think of where guns actually may have saved lives is a Killeen massacre in Texas 27 years ago. That's the only example that sort of apparently there was a woman involved in that who used a gun and killed the attacker. But put it this way, if guns made a country safe, America would be one of the safest countries in the world. It's not. And it's disingenuous, to suggest otherwise. America has a chronic problem of gun violence. So the fact that Trump thinks he can lecture the UK is beyond crap, quite frankly. And I am quite irritated by it. And it's not the first time he's done this. He decided to have a swipe at the NHS because of the junior doctors strike. But the point there was they were not protesting the NHS. They were protesting what they perceived to be mismanagement of the system. Even our health secretary said that the issue wasn't the NHS. He had disagreements with the protesters, but that wasn't what they were protesting about. In fact, the placards clearly said, "Save our NHS." This is the ignorance of Donald Trump. He interpreted that as, oh, look, the British universal healthcare system is a mess. No, it's not the principle of the system, it's the current management of the system and a range of other factors. Um, I mean, you could say this is Trump playing to his base. He is a very, very inward looking president, and it's a good example of Trump's isolationism. Now, some will say, well, you Brits have often spoken about America's gun violence. Yeah, regular citizens have, but the Prime Minister hasn't. Theresa May hasn't pointed fingers at America and said, oh, sort out your gun problem. Um, this is the President of the United States, taking cheap shots at an allied country. And it isn't just that they're cheap shots, it's that they're totally baseless. It's total nonsense. Um, so, there's this back and forth about whether or not a state visit's going to go ahead. The latest says that it is going ahead in July, but it's going to be low key. You know, I try to be fair to President Trump. When I think he's right, I'll say so. There's been occasions where I think he has been right. I think he has told it like it is. There's been other occasions I think he's lied through his teeth. He likes to play the populist non-politician, but the truth of the matter is Donald Trump is a demagogue, and Donald Trump has zero statesmanship in the way he goes about things. This is a president who conducts foreign policy by Twitter, for goodness sake. And I don't feel that his presidency is going to permanently damage the Anglo-American relationship. Yes, it's true that President Macron is making moves there, but Macron is, no puppet of Trump. And Macron, I have to say, I think Macron handled that very well. He was polite to his hosts, but he also said, "Let's make the planet great again." Um, the Anglo-American relationship is very deeply entrenched, and I don't think any incumbent, either on this side or in Washington, is going to change that. But President Bush, I recall, Jr., was vilified in this country, but I never recall Bush coming out with nonsense like this and taking cheap shots at the UK. So some of us are sick and tired of this attitude from Trump. It's just crass, ignorant, and stupid. And the most important point here is it's not just that I take issue with him offending this country, it's that it is factually wrong. Having more guns in this country would not solve our knife problem. It would make violence a lot worse. London does have a violence problem. We have a problem with the threat from Islamist terrorism. We have a knife problem. And last year there was a serious problem with acid attacks. But the idea adding guns to the equation will make things better. We haven't had a gun massacre in 8 years. British gun laws work, and anyone who thinks otherwise, in my opinion, is utterly reckless and ignorant. Um, I've said I think the state visit should go ahead, but I might rethink that if Trump continues behaving this way because it's it's obnoxious to constantly take cheap shots at an allied country. Um, but that's what I would expect. He's addressing the NRA. Trump's done nothing about America's gun violence problem. He's shown utter lack of leadership on that. And it's moral cowardice, as far as I'm concerned, on this issue. Trump has faced the NRA. Has he faced survivors of the Parkland massacre? No. So from that point of view, he's a moral coward on this issue. And I'll leave it there.